Why did Jungkook collapse into tears the moment he stepped into Taehyung's hospital room? What horrifying truth did the doctors reveal to BTS members behind closed doors? What had happened to Kim Taehyung after returning from military service that even Jimin struggled to speak about? The news broke slowly at first, a whisper, a rumor among armies online. Then a blurry photo surfaced, a familiar figure, dressed in casual black, walking through the back entrance of a Seoul hospital. That man was Jungkook, AT first. Fans speculated it was just a routine checkup or a surprise visit. But when another image emerged, this one clearer, heartbreaking, showing Jungkook stepping out of the hospital's private ward with his head down, tears staining his face, and Jimin holding his shoulder tightly. The tone of the internet shifted. Panic swept through the fandom. Where was Taehyung? Why had Jungkook been crying? Was something wrong? Soon a statement was released, brief, sterile, and corporate. Kim Taehyung has been admitted to the hospital for a post-military health evaluation. That was all it said, but the silence spoke volumes. Armies knew something wasn't right. For days, there was no update. The media buzzed with speculation. Whispers of exhaustion, rumors of an infection, even speculations of long-term complications from his military training floated around social media, but nothing was confirmed. Then came the leak. A nurse who claimed to have been on duty during Taehyung's arrival posted anonymously online. The message was chilling. I saw Jungkook collapse in front of the room. I've never seen someone cry that way. Not even celebrities. It was like his soul shattered. That one comment exploded like a bomb. People demanded answers. Fans flooded the hospital's switchboard with calls, but no new information came. Until now. Today, we reveal the full, heart-wrenching truth behind what happened inside the hospital. What Jungkook saw that brought him to tears, how Jimin tried to stay strong, and what really happened to Taehyung after his honorable discharge from South Korea's military. But before we walk through the events of that emotional week, we must rewind. To the very day Taehyung completed his service, it was supposed to be a proud moment. On a bright spring morning in April, Kim Taehyung stood tall, in uniform at the Goseong military base. His smile was tired but warm. The cameras clicked, fans cheered from afar, and his fellow soldiers gave him salutes of respect. Months of discipline, fatigue, and service had come to an end. But behind the smiles, there was something else. A quiet heaviness in his eyes. Some who were present that day later recalled that Taehyung seemed pale. He looked strong, but not okay, said one enlisted man who had served alongside him. He kept pressing his stomach as if something hurt. At the time, no one thought much of it. After all, many returning soldiers deal with physical discomfort, even injuries, from the grueling routines. But for Taehyung, this was no ordinary fatigue. Within 48 hours of returning to Seoul, he reportedly fainted at home. Big Hit Music released no details, only stating he would be undergoing medical evaluation as a precaution. But what followed was anything but routine. Inside the private ward, Jungkook's arrival, according to multiple verified sources, Jungkook was among the first BTS members to arrive at the hospital after Taehyung's admission. He came alone, dressed in black, wearing a mask and cap, trying to avoid attention. Staff on duty that day described him as tense, silent, and visibly distressed. A source close to the family revealed that Jungkook had not been able to sleep after hearing that Taehyung was unwell. He reportedly sent dozens of messages to the group chat asking for updates, and when he received word that Taehyung had been moved into isolation for observation, he dropped everything and rushed to the hospital. What he saw when he entered room 307 changed everything. He froze, said the nurse on rotation. He stood at the door like someone had punched the air out of his lungs. Then he dropped to his knees. Taehyung was barely conscious. His weight had dropped dramatically in just a few days. His skin looked pale, almost translucent. Tubes were connected to his arms. Monitors beeped steadily, and an oxygen mask covered part of his face. The room smelled of antiseptic. Cold. Sterile. Nothing like the bright stages where they once performed together. Nothing like the studio, filled with laughter. Jungkook, the golden magne, the strong one, simply crumbled. A hospital staffer recalled seeing him cry with no sound, shoulders shaking violently. He kept whispering, "Hyung, no, please, you promised you'd come back safe." Jimin arrived shortly after. His reaction, though quieter, was just as telling. He stood silently beside Jungkook, placing a hand on his shoulder, eyes never leaving Taehyung. It was as if the breath had been stolen from them both. But what had caused this sudden deterioration? What was the condition that the doctors had discovered? And why was everyone so afraid to talk about it? A diagnosis no one expected. Sources close to the situation began piecing together the medical truth. During his last months in the military, Taehyung had developed a gastrointestinal infection that went untreated due to the demanding pace of his service. What began as mild pain became severe. He had lost significant weight, had difficulty sleeping, and toward the end, was unable to keep food down. By the time he was discharged, his body had begun to shut down. But that wasn't the most frightening part. Doctors discovered inflammation that extended to his kidneys and liver. There were signs of what they feared could become permanent damage if not managed carefully. The term multi-organ stress response was used in one internal memo, a term that chilled those who read it. For a performer like Taehyung, whose body is his vessel, whose voice, breath, movement, and strength define not only his artistry but his identity, the diagnosis was devastating. The doctors informed Jungkook and Jimin privately before they entered the room. They were warned that Taehyung might not be responsive, that his condition could worsen in the next 24 hours, and that he needed complete rest. No stress, no loud emotions. But how do you tell two of his closest brothers, men who had laughed, cried, lived through fame and fury with him, to stay calm when the strongest among them was suddenly lying unconscious? That was the moment Jungkook broke. There are moments that shatter silence without needing sound. In the dim light of room 307, with Taehyung unmoving on the bed and the faint hiss of the oxygen machine being the only rhythm in the room, Jungkook sat by his side, clutching Taehyung's pale fingers. The contrast between their hands was stark, one warm and trembling, the other cold and still. No kamaras, no crouch, no fanchanch. Just two brothers, one fighting for his life, the other fighting to hold back tears that never seemed to stop. "I'm not going anywhere, Hyung," Jungkook reportedly whispered, over and over again. "I'll stay with you." Staff offered him a chair, but he refused. He sat on the floor beside the bed, leaning against the edge like a child who refused to leave his best friend's side. He didn't care about the mask he wore. He didn't care that his eyes were swollen and red. He didn't even care that Jimin had softly begged him to rest for a while in the hallway. His answer never changed, not until he opens his eyes. According to insiders, Jungkook didn't sleep that night, not even for a moment. Nurses who came in to check on Taehyung said they found Jungkook humming quietly to him, sometimes singing old melodies from their trainee days, songs that Taehyung loved. "I thought maybe he'd hear my voice," Jungkook explained to one of them. "Maybe he's just waiting for a familiar sound." Jimin, overwhelmed but holding himself together, managed the outside chaos, answering texts from the other members, coordinating with hospital staff, and speaking with Taehyung's mother when she arrived the next day. Her tears, we are told, said everything. Is he going to survive? The one question no one wanted to ask, that was the question haunting everyone. The one that even the doctors avoided answering directly. Taehyung's condition, while technically stable, was fluctuating dangerously. His liver enzyme levels were alarming. His white blood cell count was low. He was not just exhausted, he was on the verge of systemic collapse. And if his organs failed to recover fast enough, the consequences could be irreversible. Jungkook overheard fragments of a conversation between the doctor and Taehyung's mother through the slightly ajar door. She was asking if her son would be okay. The doctor responded with clinical caution. "We are doing everything possible, but he needs to respond soon." That was the moment Jungkook reportedly broke down again, slumping into a hallway chair, head in his hands, crying silently. A member of the staff who witnessed it described the scene as like watching someone grieve for a person who's still breathing.